It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day. The heart of Massachusetts should be freedom, justice, and liberty. Freedom led pilgrims to Plymouth Bay. Salem trials had justice too late. The sons of liberty spilled the tea, and then the redcoats spilled their blood. The shot heard around the world rang out from the Bay State. Boston strong and ready to defend. It's where revolution started and end. It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day. Quincy Market, Freedom Trail, Charles River, Boston Harbor, Bunker Hill, Griffin's Wharf, Fenway Park, North Charge. It's been such a long time since Boston led the way. It's more than a feeling. It's Mike and Tom to start the day.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning
Hello.
to you, Tom. Watching that intro video makes me want to visit Boston.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so beautiful. We really have we got it all. We have some mountains, we got some flatlands, we got water. It's really beautiful. Where are you from again?
I'm from Michigan.
Michigan. That's what I thought.
I unfortunately I've never got the pleasure of visiting Boston, so I'm
Well-
gonna have to make it. It's gonna have to make it to my bucket list because all this talk about the Karen Reed case, I feel like I got to go down there and actually see the places we're talking about and meet the people. But
If
never
you
been
get
there quite yet.
if you get a chance to go into the courtroom, would you go?
I mean, it's just harder to do what I'm doing because if I sit there the whole day and then I'd have to come back to my office and then put everything together and put out a video. So I actually like being able to just watch the stream, take notes, and then as soon as it's done, I can prepare ready, for my show. So in a way, I do like kind of being out of the courtroom and just watching the videos and seeing everything that's going on there,
Right.
without sitting on those hard benches.
You've been there. You've already been there. Oh my
Yeah, I've sat on those benches plenty, watching
It is
trials.
torture.
I know. I mean, when I was younger, I would. My father was a lawyer, so he's still practicing. I think going on 50 years. So he used to take me around since I was a little kid. I'd sit on those benches, those pews, and watch the trials. Yeah, I mean, I've people ask me how long I've been practicing for. I mean, probably since I was 4 years old.
Probably, yeah, forever. Yeah, absolutely.
Seems
Wow.
Seems like if there's one update that the courts can use is to get some more comfortable seating there. They have to stick with those old wooden benches that after an hour you can't feel anything from your waist down.
Exactly. Right. People keep asking me, I'm outside. Do you want to go in? I'm like, nope, go ahead. I've been in there. I remember the benches.
Yeah.
But like if you came up to visit Boston, for example, and Karen Reed invited you in to court, would you go in? Like, would you be interested in that? Like, if say one day you were here and you got the invite, would you go?
I mean, if I was there anyway for a day and I didn't really have access to any other way, I mean, I'd love to see the action in real time, right there up close and personal. I don't feel like we're missing much, sitting on the outside. I mean, I really, really would love to see jury selection. That's something that I'd really like to see. I'd really like to see the questions that I don't even know who does it. Is Alan Jackson or David Yannetti, or maybe this time it's going to be Robert Alessi. I mean,
Right.
I'd really like to see that because that's such an important part. I always talk about this on my channel, watching the jury selection and the questions that are formulated. I know that I spend a lot of time before a trial figuring out what type of questions I'm going to be asking the jury, what type of seeds I'm going to be planting. Definitely something that we're not going to be able to see otherwise. So if there's any time that I'd get invited to come into the courtroom and want to see what's going on, it would definitely be for jury selection. Everything else I can really see, with the live streams. But if I was down in Boston anyway, maybe I had some sort of business down there and I had some maybe some depositions or whatever it was, and I had a day off. Absolutely, sure. Waiting for the invite.
All right. So I'm so glad you said that because yesterday I had Larry Foreman, the DUI guy, on, and his niche, we'll call it, is jury stuff, just like you. So we had a discussion yesterday about juries. So I'm so happy that you don't mind talking about jury selection, do you?
Of course not.
because we had this discussion yesterday, and to get the same questions to you is just amazing. All right, who is your perfect juror for this Karen Reed trial?
You know, it's funny that you asked that because I actually spoke about this with Andrea Burkhardt, which I had on my show on Sunday, which was a great conversation.
I
If
love
you haven't
her.
seen that,
She's
yeah, I
great.
mean, she is so sharp. I mean, she's really sharp, intelligent, brilliant lawyer, great legal mind.
Yep.
It was a great conversation. But we were talking about jury selection, and it's funny because, like, you know, the knee jerk reaction from me and probably many lawyers. I don't know what Larry, what was it, Larry?
Yes, Larry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Larry's take was it, but generally speaking, like for these type of jurors, you know, you want to stay away from law enforcement. You know, you want to stay away from you know, people that work in the police community or something like that. But other than that, like, you know, sometimes there's a big no-no for lawyers. Like, you know, we don't want other lawyers on our cases because they know all the tricks and they know they're not going to get fooled by anything that we're trying to do. But in this case, I think that a lawyer would actually be good. I mean, if you're on Karen Reed's side, definitely, because, you know, the lawyers that have seen enough trials, have been involved in enough trials, know that, you know, what we got going on in this case is odd, to say the least. And it's not just like that we're trying to spin this whole cute argument why, you know, you can't trust the police, or, you know, the things that we hear a lot of times in criminal trials where, oh, the investigation was botched, they had tunnel vision, they just zeroed out on my client, they didn't follow other leads. We hear that in a lot of trials, but in this case there's some pretty good evidence to back that up. So as a lawyer watching this case, and to have a lawyer on the jury, I think would be good. I think would benefit you. Sometimes when you're talking about medical stuff and you have your experts, you don't necessarily want a medical expert on the jury because maybe they're going to bring in their own experience. They're not going to listen so closely to your experts, or, you know, they'll think, oh, this is where the experts, you know, trying to lean more in the favor of one side or the other, you know, so maybe that's something that you would consider. But really what it all comes down to with me is, you know, aside from the obvious like law enforcement things that I probably would, you know, kick off, although Andrea took issue with that. She said that one of her first trial that she had this law enforcement person on the jury. I'm not exactly sure what the position was, but it was a person who worked in law enforcement, and she thought that she really connected with them during jury selection, and she thought that you know, that they would connect, and he would listen to her, and he ended up being the foreman, and they ended up getting an acquittal on that case. So, you know, sometimes it works like that. I've definitely had juries where I felt like I connected with a specific juror or not. And sometimes I make a lot of eye contact with that juror, and some a lot of nodding, and like I really get some good vibes. And it turns out after the trial's over, she voted against me, or he voted against me, you know? So
Yeah.
It's hard to really read the tea leaves, but I think what's more important is how you start formulating your questions, what type of questions you're going to be asking the jury, and to try to get them to see if they start see things like you do, and see if they're going to be doubtful. One of the things that Andrea says that she wanted someone who's very open-minded, you know, someone who's not just going to commit to position early on, taking all the evidence, because the prosecution goes first. The Commonwealth definitely in this case went like how many days? 25 days before you got into the defense's.
Right. And they only get like what, 6 days left, 7 days to do.
Right. So by that time, and I do a lot of civil work now, and I'm the plaintiff. I go first, and I think that's a tremendous advantage to be able to set your case up first, and try to convince the jury of it before the defense even gets their shot. So if you're working from the defense side, you definitely want someone who's going to be willing to be open-minded. You always talk to them about, you know, in jury selection, one of the basic questions are going to be open-minded. You're going to let me, you know, present my side of the case before you make a decision on this case. Yeah. So I think a lot of it would come down to just interacting with the jury, which is why it's so important, and which is why I love to see, you know, the thought and the process that goes into these jury selection questions that either Yannetti or Jackson would be asking these jurors.
You made a comment about going first. That's an advantage, right? Going first.
Of course. Of course. In
fact, taking that time away from the defense is really what you're doing, right?
Well, it's not just taking away the time, but you're also, you know, first impressions are very lasting. You know, the way that you set up your case is extremely compelling. So there's a lot that's been written about this, which is why I love going first. Is also what you can do when you go first is you can anticipate and dispel the other side's argument. So absolutely, during opening statements, you're not just supposed to be laying out the reasons why you win, but you're also supposed to be saying you may be hearing things from the defense the following. You may be hearing things from from them that the witnesses are going to say this and this and then the other thing. But you should also keep in mind that you're also going to be hearing, whatever it is, and to dispel that type of argument. So yeah, going first is so crucial. It's so important. Definitely gives you an advantage. And I even know when I was first started trying cases, and I was talking to my father about trying cases. And initially when I was first starting, I was working on his cases, obviously, but he would let me do anything that I wanted, essentially. But initially he would let me do the opening statements. Now it's whatever I want to do, obviously I can do. But the opening statements he would tell me, and I'll be like, yeah, I'd really like to do the closing. The closing is like the more dramatic part of the trial. You get to argue, you have a lot more leeway about what you're allowed to say. But during the opening statements, so he told me that there was a real great trial attorney that he was working with when he first started off in his career. And that trial attorney felt that the most important part of the trial is actually the opening statements. He said, you give me the opening statements, you can take the rest because I'm going to win the case in my opening statement. Now,
Wow.
After practicing for a little bit, I'm not sure if I completely agree with that, but that's how important it is, making first impressions and getting your arguments out there right away. So yeah, absolutely. It's a tremendous advantage to the whoever goes first.
Is there a type of person you never want as a juror? If so, why? That's a great question too. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to a lot of asking questions about the jurors, seeing how they think, seeing how they bend one way or the other. I know I've had other attorneys, which I remember the first time I heard this question, I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting question to ask. Somebody I remember asked, what type of bumper stickers do you have? That really tells you about the personality of the person. If you're willing to post to the world something on your car, that kind of tells you a little bit of how you bend, politically or the other way.
Wow, I never thought about that. That's a great question.
Yeah,
wow.
I thought so also. I mean,
wow.
I started thinking about
that's next level. Yeah.
Yeah, they also ask, what type of which news stations do you listen to? Maybe they'll ask, what social media personalities do you follow, especially in today's day and age. So if they say, they follow you, maybe the Commonwealth will want to strike them. But that's the type of questions where you get some insight into who these jurors really are and how they think and how they bend, even though everyone's going to say, yeah, I can be impartial and I'm not going to make any, decisions until I see all the evidence. But deep down that people, can bend a certain way or lean a certain way. And and that would really help you decide whether that's a jury you want.
Wow. Bumper stickers. Oof.
What did Larry say? I'm curious about what Larry said about what jurors that
Larry's looking, Larry wants an educated person on the jury, like a PhD, somebody who has a doctorate, maybe. Somebody with a lot of life experience is looking for. He doesn't want someone that's just been, back and forth to work and that's nothing else. He's looking at somebody who he thinks is, like you said, open-minded to be able to see the facts. Because a lot of this is common sense, right? A lot of the Karen Read trial it's just common sense. Like, this couldn't have happened here, and the times just don't, like, she's not going to get home in record time in a blizzard. Especially when she doesn't know the roads either. Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a whole presentation on common sense about how you can use it. That's something that I love to use in closing arguments. I talk about common sense because that's a jury instruction. Part of what you're instructing the jury as a judge is to tell them not to check your common sense at the door. You want to bring your common sense in with you and analyze what's going on, analyze the evidence under your common sense and using your life experiences. So I always play on that. I always like to play on that and always show, whatever side I'm on, that the common sense really favors my side. And I actually did a little presentation on my channel using common sense, how you can incorporate that into a closing argument. So if you want, you can check that out. But I think there's definitely some common sense in this case that can lean in Karen Read's favor. Definitely.
Did you see Ronnie, the juror that spoke to Court TV? He spoke to Aiden first.
Yeah, I saw his interview with Aiden. That's what I saw. Yeah.
All right. What was your opinion about that?
Well, it was interesting to see how the jury thought. I think it was insightful that why the people the jurors that wanted to convict Karen Read on the what was it, charge 2, they completely discredited the ARCA experts. They didn't even, and none of the reasons were any of the reasons that we keep hearing on social media that they didn't have enough information or they didn't go check out the Lexus, they didn't know about the DNA. None of that was the reason. It was just, it seemed from Ronnie that it was just because she's there, he's there, who else could have possibly been, and who cares if it doesn't really, who cares if the science doesn't agree with the Commonwealth's theory? We'll just kind of ignore that part, which was frightening a little bit. You don't want jurors to just completely discredit these experts who were largely objective, and especially when and now that's coming out about, that they were actually paid after the trial, but when they performed the reconstruction, they were completely objective. They were completely, independent of this case specifically. And, whether there were some biases or pressures or influences, with the federal investigation, nobody knows. But from this trial, they knew nothing about it. They didn't know who Karen Reed was. I mean, that came out from the cross-examination or direct from, I think it was Alan Jackson.
Yep.
So, when you have experts like that are largely, I mean, completely uncontradicted, unless you call Trooper Paul contradicting them. And they're
I don't
really
know what you call Trooper Paul.
yeah, I mean, so they're largely uncontradicted. They're largely objective. They're extremely qualified. And for jurors to just completely discredit them and ignore their testimony just because, well, circumstantially, I mean, she's there, he's there. That's true. All the people in the house, are we going to completely just ignore their testimony? So, yeah, I guess she did it. How does it make sense? We don't know, but I guess they did it.
That's all they gave Ronnie is, he was there, she was there. We know differently, but they didn't give the jury as much info that we have. Like, as I tried to tell people, the jury's limited because we know more than what the jury knows.
Yeah, well, they didn't know about the ARCA experts. So, like, I keep coming back to that because
it blows my mind that they couldn't put that together.
Yeah, I mean, when I came into this case, I was completely standing back, objective. I'm not,
I remember when you first came, you were like, I'm just going to be neutral. I'm going to just look at this. And you were wonderful at that, taking your time, looking at everything. It was so good.
Yeah, and then really what sealed it for me was the ARCA experts. It's like, you can't, when the bar is so high that you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And you have these two experts. I don't understand how you overcome them. And I know that some of the arguments that they've made on the other side that they didn't have all this information. And, I've spoken about all those arguments, which is why, okay, maybe you can make some arguments, even though I don't necessarily agree with them. But still, the burden is so high beyond a reasonable. They don't even create a reasonable doubt.
Right.
Not even a reasonable doubt they create. After everything is said and done, they don't even create a reasonable doubt when you don't have any sort of experts on the other side saying that this is consistent with science and physics. You don't have anybody saying that except if you want to call Trooper Paul, which is, again, not a real expert.
He took an online class. No.
Yeah. So it's just, it just doesn't, and it's a little disheartening to hear that the jurors just completely, discredited and discounted their testimony. So, but it also lets you see that, juries can do anything. And that's part of the scare of going to trial. This is why attorneys are scared to go to trial generally, because you can have the greatest case in the world. And I've had cases where it was so clear. I mean, it was so clear that I started feeling bad for the other side because it was so clear that we were going to win. It was so 100% clear. And the juries come back and sometimes they don't go with you. And it's part of the Wild West that of going to jury trials. So despite what all the evidence can point to, the verdict being not guilty, anything can happen in a jury trial, which is why it makes this case even more terrifying for someone like Karen Reed.
I'm glad you're giving me the layups. This is great. What is your opinion about the 3 jurors that got kicked off the jury? Now, one of the 3 jurors, if I remember correctly, one of these 3, it was a female. And when the proctor messages were being read, the minute that the nudes things came out, she put her notebook down. She was done. End of story. Game, set, match. She was all over because of Proctor.
Yeah, I think a lot of them may have been a lot of over. I mean, that's what Ronnie said also, that once all the jurors wanted to
threw 3 of the jurors off that were pro Karen Reed, especially the one lady that was livid. Well, how does that happen? I mean, I know you say it's a Wild West, and a jury trial is just like roulette, I guess, right? You don't know, red or black. It's just one or the other, right?
Well, I mean, that was, I guess, part of the motion that Alan Jackson made for the motion to dismiss was based on some alleged jury tampering and I think he was talking about one juror. I'm not sure about the other two jurors. And, you know, I wasn't obviously in the courtroom, so I don't, and anytime they're talking to jurors about this or they threw the jurors out, I was just,
They
I don't
sent
know.
them home. They sent the.
Yeah.
You're all done. Go home. Like they were hot potatoes after the trial. Like that to me was weird.
Yeah, so I mean that one juror, which there was some unnamed unidentified individual who decided that they were talking. This juror was talking in a way that's inappropriate for a juror or whatever it was, and then
right.
he or she went and reported that to Fanning, and then Fanning went and reported that to the court officer, and then they had a sidebar about it, and then at the sidebar, Alan Jackson, it sounded like, and again, we don't know what's going on at the sidebar unless the representations, you know, we take at face value from what Alan Jackson said. But what he said was that they wanted to have a more thorough evidentiary hearing. It was right before closing arguments, and Judge Cannoni brought it seems, again, from what we heard in court, I wasn't actually in the courtroom when this happened, but it seems from what happened, Judge Cannoni called in the juror and asked her questions, and it seems like the juror denied it, and still the juror was tossed. So I think Alan Jackson has a decent point to say, look, there's enough here that warrants some more evidentiary hearing, some more probing about exactly what happened here, how this person knew that this person was a juror, how is this person just happened to be in the same location as that juror, and overhearing conversations or whatever it was, and then knew to report it to Fanning. I mean, there's a lot of questions about that whole situation that Alan Jackson wanted answers to, which is I think it's a fair point, you know. But before you strike a juror, you know, this is Karen Reed's right to have this specific jury hear her case. So that can definitely be. I think it's a reasonable request to have an evidentiary hearing about that and find out more details.
Is that now, if she denies that, that's something they can appeal to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, that's what. That's what that seems like.
And I'm glad you brought up Fanning yet again. Perfect layup. Do you know about Trooper Fanning at all?
I don't. Only from what I've heard in court. Again, you know, I'm just watching what I see in court and hear in court, which is that he seems that he was the commander of the extensive security governing the trial. All
title, correct.
Yeah, and even though he wasn't a court officer, the court officers are the ones that are in charge of the jury or keeping the jury safe, and there's a special oath we always give to the court officers. But Jackson's point was that if he's the commander of everything, so then I guess everyone really could or should or is required to report to him at some level. So you know, there can be questions about that also. You know, so I don't think it was.
If he was that officer, do you think he would possibly have access to the jurors' notebooks?
If he was the what?
That officer that they describe.
Again, you know, you don't want to believe it. You know, you assume that the court officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing with the notebooks. They're supposed to be keeping them, you know, under lock and key, and no one's supposed to have access to them at all. It's too much speculation for me, I think, at this point to say that he would have any sort of access. I don't know. Maybe that's why you need an evidentiary hearing to see exactly what type of access he did have. You know, and to hear about it. But I don't like to believe it. I hope it's not true. I mean, I hope that I'd like to assume that everything about the jurors' notebooks nobody had access to, and it was under lock and key, and it was destroyed after the trial, like you're supposed to.
Right.
You know, so I think anything beyond that, I think is some speculation that we just don't know some solid facts about.
Okay, so let me explain to you what you. This is legit. All right. Colleen Crawford works at the district attorney's office. Trooper Fanning works at the district attorney's office. They both work for Michael Morrissey in the special unit that they have there. Colleen's specialty is video editing. Fanning, I guess he's got a specialty too. He does video editing also. They both run on an LLC for a it's expert video analysis company. They own this company. The district attorney hires this company to do all the video and stuff for all his trials. All the video, everything goes through this company that Fanning and Crawford also own. They also work at the DA's office doing the exact same job that they're doing outside with this company. DA's hiring this company, sending them money.
So you're saying that they they do the video, what goes on in the courtroom. Is that what you're talking about? Or either talking about they do video?
All video. Now,
So you're talking about like the Sally Port videos also, or you're talking about
yes,
just
Sally, everything you visually see goes through this company. Expert video analysis, whatever they call it. Fanning and Crawford own that company. They're on the LLC. Now, it gets good. Prior to this, Karen Reed, they got into a trial where Michael Morrissey hired this company, video analysis, that they own, and they got caught editing a video, and then the whole case got thrown out because of they edit all the video, and everything that you look at now going back, the video was enhanced, the video was lightened up, the video was touched up. It was the video. Everything you look at now says the video was touched. They can make people disappear in a video. They can put you walking by a sidewalk, video wise, use that as evidence and lock you up. And what are you going to do? Well, that looks like me, but it wasn't. So they own a company, legit. They own a company that does video stuff. They got caught doing video stuff, bad enough that the whole case got thrown out. And then what are the odds that this company that they own, they dissolved it 3 days after John O'Keefe's death?
Interesting. I mean, this is the first I'm hearing of any of this. Perhaps
I have all the documents to show you that. It's true.
So this company was the actual company who edited
Morrissey
or whatever.
Morrissey hires this
to handle
company.
these Sally Port videos and everything, or they
handle all video for the DA's office.
Was it what you said was dissolved a few days after his death? So
the company they folded the company 3 days after.
So, but these these videos were turned over later than that, right?
Yes.
So, okay. I mean, I guess it's possible if there's some sort of interaction between this company and the videos, and I think this is ripe for cross-examination. I mean, I didn't hear anything about this in the first trial. Maybe in the second trial we'll hear more about this.
It's just coming out now. That's kind of
okay. So, well, then I guess we're going to be hearing. I guess we're going to be hearing all about this in the second trial. If they really had any sort of influence or any sort of control over these videos, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. But you're raising very interesting points that I think should be raised in trial if it comes to it. I mean, if these Sally Port videos went through this company who were in a different case, were found to be editing videos. I mean, that should definitely come out. I didn't see any about this in any of the filings or anything. When they're talking about the Sally Port videos and his motion to dismiss or request for an evidentiary hearing, which I think we're still waiting on the order for. So I mean, this is very news. It's very new to me, and I'd like to see more about this. I definitely like to see more about it and see if.
I'm going to show you real quick, okay? I'm going to show you some stuff here. All right. No, it is down here. Okay. This is the guy this is the front man, William Whitfield. Manager, Colleen M. Crawford. Manager, John M. Fanning. And this is her correct address, and that was his correct address. I don't know if he's still there, but that was at the time. And then we have this one. Can you see this?
I can't see this. I can't see this very well.
Right.
I'm only taking your word about it.
There's a lot. And
I just don't know why we haven't heard anything about this, in any filings or anything. Maybe we'll hear about it in the second trial. I mean, but
it's coming out. Like there's a lot more coming out. And
right,
and then we tied them together with this. Oh my God. So back to Karen Reed case. I'm sorry. I'm curious to know about when you were growing up and you get to spend this time with your dad and you shared the same common thing, right? So that was like I think that would maybe different bond that you had with your father than others. I mean, Dad, can I do the closing? Sure, son. Like, don't forget this. Like, that's not normal father-son talk, right? That's
No.
that's
Well,
next level, right? So, like, I think that's really cool, and I kind of want to hear more about that.
yeah. Well, what happened? What happened was I'm from a family of 9. Okay,
Whoa.
my parents, God bless them. I'm the middle child, which is
Okay.
why I didn't get enough attention growing up, which is why I created a YouTube channel. But but he would always let anybody who wants come with him to whatever he was doing that day. So even when he was working for other firms, he started his own practice when he hit 40. But before then, he was working for different firms, doing a lot of PI work, a lot of personal injury work, a lot of civil work, and he would take anybody who wanted. So initially, it was there's 5 boys. The girls weren't really so interested. The girls all went into the medical field, so we have optometrists and dentists and
Wow.
nurses in the family. But then one of them is a teacher, actually. But the rest of us, the boys, were all much more interested in the legal stuff and in the lawsuits and trials. So he started taking, the oldest son, who is the oldest in the family, and of course, anything that the oldest son is doing, everybody else wants to do.
Right.
So, but when he kind of, moved on beyond that, or he was away at school or something, so anytime possible, he would take us if we wanted. And I sat in many depositions with him growing up, just watching. And then sometimes we would talk after the case. Well, how do you think he did? Do you think he was believable? What do you think about this line of questioning? So we already started this, and we would debate his cases at the dining room table, over the dinner table,
Wow.
and we would, yeah. I mean, since we were kids, so anything that was going on, he would give us filings to read, case about, summaries and briefings and motions and things like that. So we were really knee deep in this by the time we were 12 years old.
So and this is all growing up. This is
So yeah,
the whole.
yeah, this is obviously all growing up, man, when I was still home. But yeah, and then once I moved out of town when I went to study in Israel, actually, for a year and a half when I was 20, and then I ended up in New Jersey for about 5 years. So that time I had very little, but anytime we talk on the phone, we would continue talking. I was actually in a rabbinical college at the time. And then after I was done with my rabbinical college studies, so I came back to Michigan to go to law school. And then once I got into law school, then it really heated up. So then it started, you want to write this brief, you want to do some research, you want to come with me. And then obviously anytime that he would give me, I would grab the opportunity and I would go with him to anything. And then once I graduated and I passed the bar, I think there was literally like a trial after I passed the bar, like probably within the first month or two, when I passed the bar and I started working. I wasn't working for him even. I was working for a different firm, but I think within the first month or two, he had a trial, and he's like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to do everything." So he said, "Okay, great. I'll be your second chair." So in that first trial, I went up against this other attorney who's been trying cases for probably 25 years, and he was very surprised. I mean, all thanks to my dad who trained me, but he was extremely surprised that I just finished the bar and I was able to, go head to him with him and, arguing jury instructions and arguing motions in limine and everything. I basically took over that file, and my father just was watching and whispering into my ear if he felt I should ask another question, or,
Right.
even,
yeah, little stuff.
even in this trial, you always see before they sit down, they say, "Can I have a moment, Judge?" And then they sit and they confer with their other counsel, because you want to make sure that you touch on everything, or maybe when you're sitting at the table, you notice something, so you'll whisper into the other ear. So that's something that he did, and my father really just sat back most of the trial and watched me, try the case, and that was the beginning. And then since then, it was anytime my dad had a trial since I graduated, since I got my license, he would always ask me, help me do it, whatever you want to do, you can do. Then at that point, I would try to do as much as I can, as much as I could to get the experience. And then, once I started trying my own cases, so then, that was its own experience. And he also would offer to help me with my cases, and he would sometimes come along to my cases. And I also have a brother who's a renowned civil rights attorney. He's national. If you Google his name, you'll find him, Solomon Radner. He's does some really cool civil rights work. And
is it pro bono work?
Oh, no. I mean, he does some pro bono work, but I mean, he has a family also, but to support. But he does do some pro bono. He does some innocence work, like if you have somebody who's been sitting in jail for no reason.
Yep.
And it came out that the prosecution was holding on to
Editing
some
video, maybe, and
yeah,
yeah.
whatever it was. So he does do some of that work pro bono, but mostly he's flying around the country in a number of different states. He's been admitted pro hoc vice into like 14 different jurisdictions.
Wow.
So he's really cool. I've gone to a lot of trials with him also. Second chaired him for the most part because he's like this really, really cool trial attorney. So he's not as generous as my dad and just giving me full reign and whatever I want to do.
Right.
But I sat with him in a number of depositions and trials. I've helped him in his cases as well. So it's the more that you get on your feet, the more you can try cases, the more that you'll actually learn what's going on there. And then, once I kind of developed the skill and I had it, I've been watching, different lawyers' takes on these high profile cases. So I was like, maybe something I can help out also, try to explain things and from my experience and from my knowledge. And I love to research. So anytime that there's a motion that discusses a specific area of the law, I love to research the law and explain, what's really going on, what should be the outcome. So, I guess that kind of sums it up.
Wow. I can't imagine like Thanksgiving dinner at your table. There's just no way. I can't
Dinner.
I can't
it's
fathom it.
anytime we get together.
Really? Wow.
I go to visit my parents on the weekends, and of course, within after the first minute and a half of saying how are you and the kids, it it goes into some sort of case that I'm handling or he's handling, and he actually has a trial coming up. He may be in a trial right now, actually a bench trial, my dad. We're always talking about different things, different ideas, what I would do, and he's really come to give me a lot of deference, he feels that he can actually take some of my advice sometimes also, even though he's been practicing for 50 years. So, different takes, different ways that you look at things, different postures, different strategies. I remember there was a time we showed up to a trial once, and my dad had an entire strategy set up, and there was a last minute, there was a motion that was filed, and they had to argue it the day of the trial, the morning of the trial, and that motion was never going to be granted. There's no way that motion was going to be granted, but it was. And once it was granted, the entire strategy of the case had to change. So we went out into the courtroom, we went out into the hallway, and we developed this whole new strategy to try this case. So, it's trial work. There's nothing like trial work. But the thing is it's extremely stressful.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely stressful. And you're working literally day and night, 24 hours a day. You're dreaming about the case.
Yep.
You're eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So like it's a lot. It's very taxing on the lawyer. Not that I'm shying away from it, but I am taking a little bit of a step back from the trial work because it's really it's a handful.
Yeah, it
it's
takes it out of your soul. It really, people don't realize how much it really. I mean, and I don't. When you probably don't sleep, you probably just like nap, right?
Well, what happens when a trial? I'm sure this is what happens with the Karen Reed case also, but in any trial that I'm in, so you're in trial from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 5, and then as soon as you're done with trial, you got to prepare for the next day, and sometimes there are issues that came up in the trial that you need a brief and that you need to argue the next morning. So you go straight to your office as soon as trial is over. You go straight to your office, and you work till you basically can't think anymore, and then you go home and collapse into bed, and then you dream about the case, and then at some point you wake up. And then you can't fall back asleep, so you're back at the office, and then you're getting ready for trial, and then you're in trial 8 o'clock in the morning. So to do that, let's say in the Karen Reed case for like 35 days, or how many was 6 weeks or something for this trial, or 7 weeks?
It was a lot.
It's I don't know how I don't know how these attorneys are don't look like like they're completely hit by a train after this is all done. So it's very stressful. It's very hard and stressful, and but it's very rewarding, and especially if it's something that you enjoy doing, which I do, and you're good at it. So then someone like Alan Jackson, then they can't get away from it sometimes. So
all right, so you're surrounded by a bunch of smart people, right? So you walk into a room. Who's the smartest one in the room? That must be a great argument there, right?
Well, I would say that we all bring different skill sets to the table.
Right.
Obviously, my father is the most experienced, has seen probably everything. I've seen a lot, but he's probably seen more. My brother, who's been in more trials than I have been, he's seen a lot. He's got some real some war stories. So everyone, every every experience that you have makes you a better trial lawyer. So you go through one trial, you become a better lawyer, whether you win or lose. In fact, sometimes I would argue that if you lose, you actually get better because you really learn the mistakes or you learn why you lost.
Absolutely.
So that can, if you just win, then you just think that you're awesome.
Right.
So you don't really learn as much. So I think that I've definitely learned more from my losses than I have from my wins. But I mean, my brother's incredibly intelligent, a great trial lawyer. My father is, a legend in Michigan as a trial lawyer. And you know what? Everyone knows when you're a trial lawyer. You get it.
Right.
There's a different,
Small
prestige.
circle.
Yeah, there's everybody knows there are certain lawyers that try cases, and certain lawyers that don't try cases. And if they see your name and they know that you try cases, you're going to get treated differently. So yeah, my father, since we started, it was always knocked into us that you all have to be trial lawyers. If you're not trial lawyers, then you're like the second tier of lawyers. Like it's you want to be the first
lawyer
tier.
in name only. So I guess the question is, how many of them think Karen Reed's innocent in your family of 9? And the nurses are even, I think, are much better at forming an opinion than an analytical person. If that makes sense.
So I've spoken most about this case with probably my brother because we work in the same office, even though he's busy. But we've, we interact plenty. Whether it's on his cases or my cases or, anything that I'm doing. So he's been following my channel a lot. He's been, so I've talked to him a lot about this case, and he feels extremely strongly, probably more strongly than I'd be willing to say about Karen Reed being innocent. He's done a lot of criminal defense in his life. And I talked about some of the issues that are coming up in this case. And I don't know if I can even have him on because he would be so strong. It would maybe even take away from what people believe about me that I'm still, objective for the most part. But yeah, he feels very strongly that some of the rulings are incorrect, to be put lightly. And he feels very, very strongly about this. But I think my father also, not as strongly as my brother and not as passionately as about my brother, but when I bring up some of these issues, especially like the Crosby order, when I was talking to my dad about this just over the weekend, I was telling him about, Dr. Russell, who had to go through a 2-day Daubert Lanigan hearing.
Yeah.
Then you get this order on Dr. Crosby. I mean, he was taken aback also. I mean,
she's already admitted last trial. She was dynamite.
Oh, Dr. Russell?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, as Judge Cannoli said, this is a second trial, so all the issues get to be revisited. But the fact that Crosby didn't have to go is not going to be required to go through a Daubert Lanigan hearing. The fact that she's just admitting him outright without even calling it a close call,
right?
Like he was taken aback by that also. I mean, so like this, and I've told my channel, like it's something that I that order I really struggle with. I really struggle with that order. A lot of times the judges want to try to show that they're being even to both sides, like we saw when she said when Hank Brennan stood up there and she said, "I'm going to ask you questions in the middle, just like I did to Alan Jackson," to try to show that she's treating both sides the same way. But when you get an order like that, it's very, very difficult to defend. So
speaking about difficult to defend, if your brother wants maybe like a class action suit, maybe we can put some money together. They're pushing the buffer zone. They're trying to push the buffer zone away and away and away and away.
Oh, really?
I mean, courthouse. Like,
there was an order about that. Wasn't it only like 100 feet or 200?
You can't walk on the front steps of a courthouse. They are not allowing you to do that.
Right. They had some sort of buffers. I actually remember discussing that on the channel way back when. I think that when that was filed, it must have been back in January of 2024, because that's when I started covering this, and I saw that issue and I was like, oh, that's an interesting First Amendment issue. I'd really like to research that and read about it. And that's exactly what I did. One of my first videos on the Karen Reed case was about the buffer zone. And I thought that she said it was like 100 feet or 200 feet.
Yeah.
Like so
200 feet. And I think she wants to push it to 5.
Yeah, I mean, he does class action also. I mean, his bread and butter is civil rights, but he's done mass torts. He's done class actions. He did a lot of criminal defense when he first started, which is why he kind of dragged me a little bit into that.
We're not influencing anybody. That's all. She just doesn't want us near there. That's all. When no one tried to go near the jurors, it's nothing like that. So her reason is just because she doesn't want to hear us. So what? That's kind of crazy. Um, what else was I going to ask you? I asked you about your. Can you tell me what your number one win was? Like that the bumper sticker thing. What was like something like that on one of your cases that just kind of like set you like it kind of put you where you are?
Well, it's hard to identify one, but I will say there's a couple cases that really I felt like, I feel very good about. One of them was when I first got out of law, when I first passed the bar. There was a big trial that my father and my brother were doing together. Okay, so you can imagine the stakes in that case. It was a civil case. That's mostly what I do, civil work.
I'm thinking the family dynamic. Forget about the case, just the family stuff. I can't like.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's fun when we all show up to trial in the same.
Wow.
So the first trial that I tried was a case where there was a lady who was going to lose her leg. She was in an accident where she was going to lose her leg, and the liability there wasn't so crystal clear. And that's really where we had to win the case on. The damages we all understood. A jury's going to be sympathetic for a young woman having to lose her leg.
Right.
So, but we really had to get over the liability part, and we really had, how to structure our arguments. So I did the opening statement in that case. And it was one of the first cases that I tried, and I did it with my father and my brother. And it was kind of like we all did our parts. So my father is extremely good at cross-examining witnesses, directing witnesses. So he did some of that work. I did, and of course it's all in collaboration, but I did the opening statement, and my brother did the closing arguments, and also I think a witness or two. And we ended up winning that case, winning it big. And it was made it to some of the papers in the lawyers magazines here, and I have it up on my wall.
And this is right after you passed the bar.
This is right after I passed the bar, which is not always good as soon as you come out to get a win, because the next few cases I lost. But that was one of the cases that I felt like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be a trial lawyer. And then not that I had a choice, because my father was gonna make me do it one way or the other. But then there was another case, to believe it or not, that it was a much smaller stakes case, but I was up against a team of lawyers, and it was just me on the other side, and it was these other really experienced, knowledgeable, intelligent lawyers on the other side. It was also a civil case, but not as higher stakes. But it meant a lot to me because I really wanted to win that case, and it was against this huge law firm, over I don't know, 50 lawyers. And just on this case alone, they had two really experienced lawyers trying the case, and besides from the lawyers behind the scenes helping them out, and their paralegals. And it was just me in my office. It was like me in my little office here with my computer going against this tremendous law firm. And I won the case. And then after I won the case, they appealed it. And they appealed the case, and they won the appeal. So I had to try it again. I tried the case again, and I won again. And then they appealed it again. And right now, this case is over. It's over 7 years old. It's coming on its 8th year anniversary of this case. And we went up to all the levels of appeal. So it started off in the district court level. Right. It was appealed to the circuit court. Then it went to the Court of Appeals. Then it went to the Michigan Supreme Court. The Michigan Supreme Court agreed with me. They sent it back to the Court of Appeals. We just filed all of our briefing in the Court of Appeals. And that case is now waiting to be argued at the Court of Appeals level. So that was a case also that I felt so good about that case, even though the stakes weren't so high, but just because it was really a David versus Goliath type of battle. And I felt like, I won the case, with my skill, obviously with God's help, but, with the skill and the knowledge and the experience and helpfulness. And it's always good to feel like that, when you're the underdog and you come out on top. So that was another good one. I had another trial that I was really gearing up to try a couple months ago, but it settled last minute. Recently there's a few other cases that I tried with my father that were very, very difficult cases that we ended up trying. But yeah, I think that those are the two cases that if I had to, point to any two cases that really cemented my status as a trial lawyer. Those would be the two.
Wow. That's incredible. And again, I can't imagine your dad watching you try a case and him sitting back going, I made that. I mean, that's a parenting win if there ever was, and he get to witness that, and with your other brothers too. So, man, that is
Well,
that's
my mom
that's
likes to come
blessed.
watch also.
Oh yeah, poor mom.
Yes.
How's your mom? Like, just don't tell me she has a job. She's got to just raising you guys, right?
Well, I'll tell you, my mom actually raising us is a full-time job, but she also worked for like 40 years as a teacher. So she did a
got
lot
it
of that
both
work.
ways.
But then what happened was when my father went on his own, when he turned 40, he went on his own. He opened up his own practice. So my mom is a very, very intelligent person, very, very quick learner. So she's like, why should you go hire yourself a legal assistant? I'll do whatever you need. So what would happen is that she would work a full day as a teacher. Then she would come home and my father would, dictate on his dictaphone everything that, he would want a legal assistant to do. She would sit down at the computer from about 6 o'clock to like 10:30 at night, doing everything that he needed to get done. And she's smart as a whip, so she's able to get done what another legal secretary would be able to do in a full day. She would get that done, do all the typing, get everything out, and then she became probably more knowledgeable in the law than I did at some point. So she actually is very well read about all this stuff, and she knows a lot about the law, and she's still very actively involved. My parents are I think my dad's over 75. My mom's in the 70s, but they're still.
Wow.
I always say my dad works harder than I do. He has a full caseload. He's not slowing down. And, the only thing he asks us now is that he actually asks us now that you can't say no when I need your help for trial lawyer. Like now we need your help for trial lawyer.
Right.
So,
Well, wow, dude, that in itself is amazing. Talk about being blessed. I just say I can't. I don't know. I see this differently. That is, God's a funny guy. He does things for different reasons. And look, I mean, I'm talking to you about. I mean, again, look at where I'm at. I didn't think I'd ever be here talking about Karen Reed stuff and learning about all this law stuff. I never thought that. This wasn't on my list, but yet here I am. So there was a question. How can Karen's lawyers ask questions that prosecutions can't object to or have BEB sustain? How can Karen's lawyers avoid that?
Oh, how can they ask questions to not get the other side to object?
Right.
Well, you can't. I mean, the other side can always object, whether they have a basis or not. And we find in this court, you don't have to state in the basis to your objection. So this is a situation where any question that they don't like, or they want to give the witness a little bit more time to think about how they're going to answer it, they can just object. As we found, there's plenty of objections with these questionings and whether they're proper or not. And there's really no way to stop it because as a lawyer, you're required to make an objection on the record if you feel that something's improper. So there's really no way to do it. I know that there's a movie out there a long time ago because I don't really watch movies anymore, but there was a movie out there a long time ago about a trial lawyer. And I think it was, what was that name of the video? I think it was John Travolta.
Yeah, civil action.
Civil action, yes, civil action. And he was going up against this other really experienced lawyer as a trial lawyer, and he's also teaching a class like trial advocacy, whatever it is, in a law school. And when I remember, this always stuck in my mind is that you should, he was talking about objecting. He's like, the first thing you should do if you fall asleep at counsel table, what should you do when you wake up? Objection. So you always want to cut off the flow. And that also happens. I noticed that in my cases also, when you get into a good flow with a witness and you're going boom, 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 you're going on.
Right. Yes.
The other side is like, oh shoot, this is not going to go well for me. They'll just, stand up with an objection just to like stop your flow. So, I mean, there's really no way to stop that.
We noticed the judge does that a lot.
That the judge cuts them off?
A lot.
Oh, okay.
Especially when Alici's speaking, he gets in.
You're talking about when they're making oral arguments. You're not talking about cross-examining witnesses. Yeah.
No. Like in general, like
yeah, which is why she tried to say that she does the same thing for Hank Brennan. But yeah, I mean, right. I know what you're talking about, and she and a judge can do that. And again, it's like
her room, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's completely fine. They're allowed to do that. In fact, they kind of train you in law school. If you go to the right classes or whatever, like how to deal with that and to not ruin your flow when a judge cuts you off. There's especially when you get to the appellate level, you can start your argument and all the judges will start attacking you and jumping on you and try to make it that you lose your flow. But that's one of the things that they're trained, and these lawyers are extremely qualified and experienced, and there's nothing that's going to cut off their flow, I don't think.
It says, do you see bias in this case?
So this is the question that up until the Crosby order, I've been able to answer and say I haven't seen blatant bias. I definitely don't like some of the rulings. A ruling can be wrong, and I'm not going to say that means that she's biased. I've seen certain areas where she could have ruled against the defense and didn't. So my classic example is where Dr. Russell, she could have excluded Dr. Russell in last trial. She came up last minute. It was a Rule 14 violation. She absolutely could have excluded, and she didn't. So like at that point, I was saying, look, I understand the mannerisms. I understand the huffing and the puffing. I understand the, seems like she may be annoyed with the defense counsel at some point. But if you just look at the orders, my position has always been, if you look at the orders and how her rulings are, you don't really see, I haven't seen what I would call blatant bias. What I'm struggling with is this last order about Crosby that I don't have a good explanation for. So that's what's really testing my theory on this case. And it's just like I said before, it's hard to defend why the difference when it comes to Crosby as opposed to Dr. Russell. It's just, I haven't heard a good explanation yet. So I get that question a lot.
Now you obviously know Aiden, Turtle Boy.
I went on the show.
And like he broke it. So to the people, us on the ground, we see that because he broke it, that he seems to be targeted now by the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. They don't like what he's saying or bringing attention to for the most part. They actually went to court and they asked the judge, how do we get him to stop? Can we shut him up? So by doing what they did was a way to shut him up. They took away his freedom. Do you see that coming into play in the Karen Read trial?
So I have to say that I have not been following the Turtle Boy stuff. I'm not familiar with all the charges. I know that they're witness intimidation charges. I spoke to Turtle Boy when I was invited onto the show just for a little bit about it. It seems like that there's laws in Massachusetts which he was, again, I didn't do some research on this just to make this very clear.
No, this is just opinion right now.
My disclaimer is that I didn't do any research about this, but what he was telling me from what the laws are about witness intimidation, that even if a witness just subjectively feels that your actions mean that you're trying to persuade them to not testify or anything like that, then you can get charged, which to me sounded a little bit nuts, a little bit. I'm not, again, I haven't researched the law, but that's what he was telling me. And from what he was reporting to me, then I would say, okay, it sounds a little bit off. I'd like to do some more research, but he's in good hands with Mark Bedro. He doesn't need my help. But do I see that coming into this case? The only time that I see that coming into this case is based on the motion that Hank Brennan just filed, which was to get all these communications between Karen Read and this intermediary, as well as they're alleging that there's communications directly between Karen Read and Turtle Boy. And they want these communications to kind of show, this is what Hank Brennan is arguing, that they want to show that Karen Read was actually involved, either directing or encouraging this witness intimidation. And therefore, they want to, again, plug that into the Karen Read case and say, well, the reason why she's doing that is because of consciousness of guilt. And this is another area where I was talking to Andrea.
That's so subjective, though, isn't it?
Is it subjective?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the question. Usually in law, you have to show some sort of objective test. There has to be some sort of objective test that your actions at this point, your actions mean that you're intimidating a witness, and not just how the person subjectively feels. So again, if that is the standard, that is just based on someone's subjective feelings, then that's very difficult to defend, because how are you going to say you didn't feel that way? I'm saying I did feel that way. So that's why gauge. Exactly. There's no really objective test how to test that. But again, I haven't done enough research on it, but That's from what he's telling me. Now, again, if you have somebody on tape saying, and I'm doing this so that you don't testify. Okay,
Right.
then the guy said it. Or if he says, "Oh yeah, you're really going to testify in the Karen Reed case now?" Yeah, or we're going to be waiting for you. Okay, then we see some objectively by the person's comments. But if it's just parading outside and picketing or saying "Free Karen Reed" or whatever it is, why does that mean that you're trying to intimidate a witness not to testify? That's where it gets maybe a little bit more gray. But I think that they are going to try to inject that whole witness intimidation situation and try to show that Karen Reed was involved somehow, and maybe not directly, but circumstantially, or that she was kind of winking to it or nodding to it. They make some may make some sort of arguments like that, but I see that that's where Hank Brennan wants to take it. So we'll see.
This is where I'm so confused. I'm pretty sure she's allowed to talk to anybody she wants. Now, I'm sure her attorneys say, "Shut up. We'll do all the talking. Don't you say a word. We got this." But that's different with Karen Reed. Karen Reed's talking to different people, right? Whoever it is. Isn't she allowed to do that in America? She can talk to Aiden. It's not against the law, and that's not conspiracy for witness intimidation. She thinks she's getting framed. I think she's getting framed. I'd tell Aiden so he'd write a story about it. I think you would tell Aiden so he'd write a story about it. Who wouldn't? That's where I'm confused.
She is allowed to talk to anybody that she wants. That's 100% protected. And even Hank Brennan said he's not even looking for a gag order against her. She can talk to whoever she wants, as she did with Gretchen Voss. He had no issue. He just wanted all the off the record conversations and unredacted conversations and transcripts, whatever. So he has no problem with her talking. She's a lot of talk. But if she's saying things to Aiden, "Oh, go to these people's houses and intimidate them so that they don't testify against me," well, then you may be getting into witness intimidation. That may be some charges there, or some other, even though we know about the grand jury. But yeah, that's where they're trying to go with this. That, yeah, you're allowed to talk to anybody that you want, but if you're encouraging or directing people to intimidate witnesses to not testify, that's where it crosses the line. And that's where Hank Brennan's trying to go with this motion and be able to get all these communications. So, I spoke to Andrea about this. She, and the ultimate question is if that's what we call a fishing expedition, like, is this just a regular course of discovery where, you're allowed to discover a lot more material that's not really technically admissible to see if something will be eventually admissible, that you're allowed to do. But there's a fine line between open discovery, liberal discovery rules, and fishing expeditions. So
what if they ran our license plate that day just for being there? Is that a violation of our First Amendment?
Well, if they run your license plates, that's a different issue. There's some law about what, when police officers are allowed to run, people's plates. I think it happens a lot. But I'm saying in terms of this specific area, this is the question. Hank Brennan filed that motion. What Judge Cannone is going to do with that is anyone's guess. She may say it's a fishing expedition, but my position on this, and something that I was talking to Andrea about also, is that, Karen Reed has always been, their position and posture has always been that we have nothing to hide. You can go look at all the reports that were, unreported, all the off the record reports and all the transcripts. They have no objection to that.
Correct.
So I'm wondering myself whether they're even going to oppose this motion. They may say, go ahead. You want to see Karen Reed's communications with Terrorboy? There's nothing there. Go ahead. Enjoy yourself. Is that the posture that they're going to take, or maybe not? So that's something that's, we were just discussing. And then also my other point was that I feel like, like we're saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It should be both ways. So we know that the defense wanted to get all of the reports on the Sandra Birchmore case, right? All Correct. These same investigating officers who were investigating Karen Reed were also investigating Sandra Birchmore. So they wanted those reports. They wanted those communications. And Judge Cannone said, no, that's a fishing expedition, right? That's essentially what she said. Well, if that's what your ruling is going to be when they're asking for these reports and these communications, then why should it be any different when you're asking for Karen Reed's communications with Turtle Boy?
Exactly. Oh my God. I'm not an attorney, but you just put that in a way that I absolutely understand that completely. What about the feds? Have you ever had any experience dealing with the federal government with one of your clients?
I was in federal court, but I don't know the inner workings of how the federal government works.
But
with their investigations.
My question is not about how they work. It's about you and the client. you and your client and the interaction between you and your client and the federal government? Like,
Yeah.
did they say, hey, by the way, we're coming to investigate you?
Yeah, no, that I haven't. I don't have any intimate knowledge about exactly how, I mean, I haven't experienced it, at least in the cases that I've been in federal court on.
What about your
So
family? I'm sure your family's
my,
experienced. I
my,
mean,
yeah, my brother may have a better insight into, into those. Maybe he has more experience definitely in the federal courts than I do. So he may have a better idea about that. But I haven't personally in my exposure in the federal court system have much to say about that. So
yeah, I'd love to speak to him about
yeah,
that.
you'll have to get him on next. I'm sure
Yeah.
he'll be happy to talk to you, and I'm sure he'll be a lot more exciting to your audience about his feelings and his passion on this case.
What do you think about Hank wanting the defense's questions?
Hank, what?
Hank Brennan wanting the defense's questions before they get asked in
Oh,
like a trial.
like the outline
Yeah,
between the ARC experts.
they want to know what you're going to ask, so
Well,
they
I
don't
mean,
get ambushed or something like that.
okay, so you don't get. I mean, the specific questions that you personally may have, you don't get. But if you're collaborating with a witness and you're sending an expert witness and you're sending the outline back and forth, that's Rule 14. You're supposed to turn that over, from my understanding. So that was the issue that came up. They don't get to see all of the notes that Alan Jackson's making personally on his computer. The questions he's going to be asking, cross-examining witnesses. What I found very interesting in this case, and under Massachusetts law, is that, seems to be again another odd part about Massachusetts law, is that generally speaking, you only have to turn over information to the other side on your witnesses. Each side has their own witnesses, and
Okay.
you have to turn over information on your witnesses to the other side, and the other side has to turn over information on their witnesses to you.
Okay.
Now, in Massachusetts, the way it works is that if there's an order, again, if there's a motion about this and there's an order, which there was in this case, that if I have some juicy stuff on your witnesses, I have to turn that over to you. So I have this great cross-examination getting ready. Let's say, for example, Jennifer McCabe. This is exactly what happened. They had her phone data, which showed that she stopped by Officer Lang's house.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So they were required to turn that information over to the Commonwealth so that they can prepare how to deal with that line of cross-examination, which they obviously did. And that's something that also, it's something that's unique to Massachusetts, and most jurisdictions you don't have to turn that over. Like, why do I did better homework on your witnesses than you did, so I have to give you the fruits of my hard labor? Like, you prepare your witnesses.
Yes. That's what it seems like to us.
Yeah, that's exactly but that's what the law is in Massachusetts. I can't change the law, but that's what it is. So it's definitely an oddity. It's a little weird. I mean, that's just how that's the law. There's a couple of jurisdictions that also do it, but it also really takes a lot of the bite out of cross-examination, and it kind of feels a little unfair. Like, you should know your witnesses better than I do. You should know all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Just because I'm a better lawyer, so then I have to turn over all this information. So you can just sit back and not do anything, and then just I know I got Alan Jackson on the other side, and he's going to dig up all this stuff, and then he's going to turn it over to me. So great, I don't have to do my job as a lawyer. So it seems a little unfair to me. But that's the law in Massachusetts, so that's what it is.
Can't make this stuff up. Craziness. What would you give for advice for the people that are watching this trial that are really getting wrapped up in it and emotionally over it? Like, people, this is personal to a lot of us, right? Like, not that they're Karen Reed, but they feel for her. So everything that the judge does against Karen, they take it against them. Like, it hurts them, people, because they're so wrapped up in it. And I get it. Like, I totally understand. What advice can you give to the audience to help them not get as wrapped up? Because I'm sure you kind of understand where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you live there, this is your, if you live in this place, obviously it's going to be very difficult to just divorce yourself emotionally from what's going on. I mean, these are the rules that you live with. You're watching the justice system play out the way it does in your jurisdiction. And, it's very, very difficult to be able to just separate yourself from it. I completely understand that and agree with that. The best approach, which is what I'm trying to do, is to not get emotionally, wrapped up in this. But again, I live in Michigan, so
Right.
I'm in Michigan, I've got my own cases, I got my own justice system, and, we have our own problems. Everyone's got their own, but nothing's perfect. Nothing's really perfect. But what really strikes home and hard in this case is the fact that many people feel that this is just an unfair prosecution, and they're just continuing with it. And it's hard. How do you just completely ignore that part? So it's, especially when you're living in that jurisdiction, it's very difficult. So I don't have a great answer for you, but what I could say is that most of the time, the system works well. If you're talking about, let's say 80% of the time, the right people, they got the right people, the investigation was proper, and there's not corruption.
Everything lined up, right?
So nothing's perfect, but you're always going to have a few cases which shine some light onto some of the parts of the system that are not always the greatest, and that's where you get a case like this. So I know that as an outsider, I've came into this case just to kind of help people understand it, to break down the filings. There's a lot of.
You've done such an amazing job with that, by the way. Thank God.
Thank you. I mean, that's the point. The point is to just understand really what's going on. I think the more that you understand the rules, because I've seen this a lot. I'll do a whole analysis on something, and I'll put out something like on Twitter saying, "Hey guys, here's my analysis on whatever the latest motion." And before even people will even read it, like I'll have the anti-FKRs coming out saying, "Oh, grifter, this and that, and the other thing." They haven't even heard my analysis. They're just so committed. They're so absolutely, emotionally invested on one side that they refuse to just keep an open mind and try to understand really what's going on. So that's something. I mean, other people do actually watch my stuff, and then they disagree. That's fine. You can disagree with me. I'm not here to be the word of God here. Like, I'm just giving you what my analysis has shown. And, obviously that's the best way to go about this, to really understand what's going on. And, that's what I think a lot of these lawyers, that there's campaigns now to, against all these law tubers that they're all just trying to feed the fire, and they're just trying to do this for clicks and that and the other thing. What happened up until this case? Up until the Karen Reed case, then these were all just completely lawyers that were just doing their job and helping. But now all of a sudden they're just feeding a mob. I don't think that's fair either. Just be reasonable about it. Understand what everyone's doing here. And we're trying.
Problem is they lost control of the narrative, where they could just slip the news media a tip. Hey, by the way, come here and look, film this trial. They steered the narrative, the media, and we took that away from them, and that's kind of an issue in itself.
Yeah, we know that a lot of people are moving away from traditional media. That's just the climate, what's been going on, and which is why a lot of people are turning much more to, people like myself, people like Andrea Burkhardt, to really understand and give a fuller analysis about what's going on. And a lot of times, you have somebody on mainstream media or traditional media where they'll cut to some lawyer who'll talk about it for 2.5 minutes, and then that's all you get. Right. And here you're getting people like educated, experienced lawyers talking about it, doing much more of a deep dive and really understanding the issues and explaining them. So it's a lot more educational, and that's really what we're trying to do here. People that have attacked me even and attacked other law tubers that are just saying what they see. We're just saying what we're seeing. We're saying what we believe in and what our experience has taught us. So to just use your emotions to just immediately, it became so polarizing that you cannot. In fact, it's funny because I've never, from the beginning, said that I completely am embracing this conspiracy. What I've said is that there's too many questions here that are unanswered, that I can't say for sure there is a conspiracy. I can't say for sure that,
because you don't have the answers. Like,
I don't have the answers.
Totally makes sense. I get it. Yeah, but
right. So all this, to me, all this tells me is that there's reasonable doubt. That's what all this tells me. So, and that hasn't pacified the other side. That hasn't, I've been more embraced by the people on the Karen Reed side, because I've said that, rightfully so, I don't think that the Commonwealth proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so maybe that's why the other side, the free Karen Reed side, has embraced me a little bit more than the other side. But I've tried to have conversations with the other side. I try to say, look, let's have a conversation. I offered any lawyer who disagrees with me, come onto my show. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation.
Yep.
No one's really taking me up about it. And they just, throw attacks at me. So it's, I did have, like I said, I did have two guys, I did have, what's her name, Kevin and Kate come onto my channel. At least they took up the opportunity. We
Yeah.
discussed it. I think it was a normal, regular conversation. It was a
It-
rational conversation, but it's such a polarizing case that it's a shame. It's just
and
a
so
shame that people.
and some of the things, some of the facts, some of the basic, most simple facts, they won't even admit to. They'll go right around it to something else. It's like, no, no, no. Um, what do you think of all the lawyers now that are now looking at the key? Do you think this is going to get even bigger than it is now?
I think it has to be. I mean, the more that this case goes on, the more attention it's getting, and the more lawyers are looking at this. I mean, I've spoken to many lawyers about this case, many lawyers, and and I tell them the different facts of the case, and they're very intrigued by it. I just spoke to another lawyer that she's on the other side of a case of mine, and she's interested in this type of stuff. She didn't hear about the Karen Reed case, and I told her about some of the facts, and she's like, "Oh, I got to read up on this." And she spent the whole weekend. She was in Jamaica, whatever, was on vacation, and she was researching and looking into it. And she responded back. She's like, I can't believe that's going on. She started talking to me about the case. So it's getting a lot more attention. More lawyers looking at this case. And look, I think I'm a reasonable, objective lawyer, and I'm looking at these cases, and there's some real questions that lawyers like me, the trial lawyers, have on this case. And so I think it's definitely going to get a lot more traction, definitely as the trial's coming up, and the more attention it gets.
Wow. Wow. All right. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure. And the way that you I'm gonna say props to your dad. He did a great job raising you, because you have the ability to take the law that we have no idea about. We're just people. We do other stuff. We mow lawns. We don't open law books. We don't look at case law. But you do that, and you take and you bring it to us in a way that we all understand. That's huge, because now we're not as, that anxiety is not there for the unknowing. Does that, do you know what I'm saying? And the more lawyers that we have on the case, like you, for example, it reassures us that we're not crazy, because this stuff's really going on. If we came to you now with this case and told you all the stuff that went on, you'd be like, what would you say if we brought this whole Karen Reed case and dropped it on your lap right now and told you about it? What would you think? Crazy?
I mean, it's like I said, I don't think my opinion is going to change. I mean, it's the more you look into this case, the more questions you get, and the more questions are left unanswered. And there's the whole legal part of this also, which is which is very interesting to me, which is why I like researching it and explaining it to everybody, and try to just get more people more well educated about what's really going on and what these motions mean and what's going on in court. But there's so many questions with this case that I don't think we're ever going to get the answer to. So perhaps if the investigation was done differently, perhaps if if certain people weren't ignored, or certain houses were searched, or some other questions about this case, if phones would have been completely turned over and not destroyed, so we would definitely have probably better answers to what's going on here. But I think what everyone's noticing, and what I'm noticing, and I think anybody that I speak to is noticing, is that there's just so many questions about this case. There's so many questions that I don't think we're ever going to get answers to. And when you have that type of prosecution, and you're trying to button up all these issues, which Hank Brennan's probably going to try to explain how this interaction could have happened with the car and John O'Keefe, and then the injuries, that he sustained are consistent. He's going to try to explain all this, but is it really trying to fit a square, a circular, peg into a square hole?
Right.
But that's what you see, and that's what you see in this case. If I would have taken this case, we would have dropped this case into my lap before the first trial.
Yeah.
And as a prosecutor, I would have looked at this case and said, there's no way I can win when I have these ARCA experts and all I have against them is Trooper Paul.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to be able to overcome reasonable doubt in that way. So I don't know what Lally was thinking, and I think that there's perhaps a lot of outside pressure to try this case and win it, and therefore they have to do it, and then they're going to try as much as they can to get a conviction to kind of either maybe save face.
Exactly.
Hank Brennan.
Yep.
So I mean, but I think Hank Brennan realizes some of the problems in the first case. That's why he's trying to fix them. He hired his own biomechanical engineer, which I really I think that's going to be the most interesting part of the trial. I think for me,
yep,
I really want to see what this biomechanical engineer is going to say and how he's going to explain how this all works in physics, and
Right.
and what Dr. Rentschler and Dr. Wolf are going to say in response to that. Because if he gets on the stand and says that Dr. Rentschler and Dr. Wolf are just completely out of their minds and they have no idea how to put an equation together, and their physics are from a cereal box or whatever,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and it's not real science, and this is the real science, and he's able to explain that very clearly, okay, that would be an interesting witness. On the other hand, if he doesn't do that and he just says, yeah, I just disagree, and then you get Dr. Wolf and Dr. Wentzer to say he hasn't discredited anything that we said, and this is all the science, this is all the physics, so then you're going to be right back to reasonable doubt. Which expert do you believe? So it's I think, like I've talked to Andrea, is that if this wouldn't have the publicity that it did, and there wouldn't be as much pressure to get a conviction, this case may have very well gone away with a slap on the wrist.
Really?
But because of what's become of it, because of how it's blown up, so it's now there's a lot of pressure to get a conviction. So it's not going to go away, until there's a verdict, either guilty or not guilty.
Right. Right. Wow. That's amazing. Listen, can you come back on my show? Is that possible?
I'd love to come back on. Sure.
Wonderful.
Sure.
And again,
It's been pleasant. I also want to thank everybody in the chat. Also, I am noticing it. The people are saying hi to Brother Counsel and thanking Brother Counsel. So
they love you.
Yeah,
The chat loves you.
Yeah, I appreciate all the love. So if I get all the love, I'll come back.
Let me just say this from all the Karen Reed people. We can't thank you enough just for your honesty and your integrity in reviewing the case. And again, your mom got to give her props too, because you're teaching us the law that we don't know this. We don't know case law. We don't know, none of that stuff. We don't know what a writ is, right? Come on. So to have you as that interpreter, it's a blessing from God. And again, I keep saying this over and over. God puts the most amazing people in this movement, because it's like nothing I can even describe. And I think that's bigger than the Karen Reed trial, is the movement and the people and how we've all come together. I've met new people, I've met new friends, and I would know them from otherwise this.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that I was actually always wanted to be a teacher.
Well, you got it. You nailed it. Wow.
I wanted to be a teacher, but then at the same time, I wanted to be a trial lawyer. So, how are we supposed to merge the two? Well, this is the perfect way. I can became a trial lawyer, and then you can use your experience, your knowledge to help educate other people and teach other people. I mean, a lot of people on my channel have said you should become a professor. The way that you explain things and make it all simple and simplified and understandable. Become a professor. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'm not gonna be able to do this anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I love breaking things down, making it simple, explaining things. I enjoy the whole teaching part. So
you do a great job, and please don't stop, please, because you're very valuable to us, and
okay.
And so isn't Andrea, and so isn't Melanie, and so isn't Brandy. I mean, all you outside people, you kind of give us all a gut check just to make, because we're on the inside, right? We can't see some of the, like, half of the stuff that you guys can see, right? So, and even Broken Baker, he's in Denmark, I think, and he even tells us this, look at this. So again, it's everybody in itself working together to make this a better movement to help Karen Reed. That's our goal. If you're not here to help Karen Reed, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes you can be so knee deep in your position that it's hard to see things objectively anymore. Which is why it's good to kind of go out of your little circles and just see, okay, what does this guy say? He's an objective guy. Let's hear how he sees the case, and then maybe I can re-examine my positions, because maybe I'm just so steeped in my position and I'm refusing to hear anything objective.
And I'm afraid that's kind of where we're at, because it's so personal, and we're actually every ruling hurts us. So, and I can't. And again, please pass our love on to your family and in our prayers. And if your brother, I'd love to talk to your brother if he's interested. I'm open to talk to anybody. And I like how you had Kate on, because that's, you're willing to have the other side on, just to, even just to hear them. You don't have to agree with them, but you took what they said and you looked at it and it doesn't line up with the other things. And that's okay. That's just two differences of opinion. And I don't mind doing that either. So
Yeah, yeah.
for you to step, I don't want to say step over the line to the other side, but that takes a little bit of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. You did great. We were proud of you to do that. To actually put your hand out and shake on the other side and mean it and be sincere with it and go with it and do the right thing with it. So
yeah, let me just tell you. Let me just tell you one more story. Let me just tell you one more story about that specifically, okay? Because this is something that I've learned from day one as a trial lawyer. Because we're very adversarial. I mean, you can be filing motions and calling out the other side, and then you go to trial and you call the other side, a bunch of names, and then they're ridiculous and they're defending a position that's ridiculous, whatever it is. And then so the first trial, remember that first trial I told you about? So in that first trial was a very very adversarial proceeding. The other attorneys, by the way, on that case were phenomenal. They were very good attorneys. So it was really a very good battle. We ended up winning, and I'll never forget this moment, because like after everything, after like 2 years of work, and after finally got the verdict, the jury was dismissed, and I almost was scared. This is my first case, my first trial that I've ever was part of. I was almost like scared to look at the other side, the other defense attorneys, because I wasn't, maybe they'd be sitting there, ignoring us and being. The other attorney walked over to our table, put out her hand and said, "Congratulations." Like it just taught me, like, you can still be, you can still be respectable. You can still understand that we're both doing a job here.
right.
And, despite how things can get, I believe strongly in my position, something that you learn as a lawyer, that you can be fighting, and then in court, and then outside you can be having lunch together and joking about, I don't know, the Bruins or the Red Sox, or whatever it is. And that's something that I've always tried to do. My brother, also the one that you're probably going to have on soon. That brother, I've seen him also go at it with the other attorneys, or go at it with maybe a police officer who's on the stand. And he'll be cross-examining that witness, that cop, to make him look like he's lying, and he can't figure out how to say a true statement if his life depended on it. Right. And then after he gets off the stand and the jury's dismissed, whatever, he'll go over to the police officer and stick out his hand and say, shake his hand and just show, like, look, I'm doing a job here, you're doing a job here, So there is a very important element of that I think exists. And even if I after watching, this is why I offered it. After I watched the trial, I said, I think that she should have been found not guilty. Like, I think it was clear. Right. And I offered any lawyer to come onto my channel to talk about it, just to have a conversation about it. It doesn't, we can disagree and still have a conversation about it. We can't, it's not helpful just to each go into your own echo chambers and parrot your thing. So, I'm always open to hear and re-examine my opinions. If I said something that's incorrect, I'm always open to re-examine it. So that's why I wanted to invite anybody on. The only people that took me up on it was Kevin and Kate. So we had them on. We had a conversation. I think it was fine. I think my position was pretty clear, but yeah.
Again, it couldn't have been the right person or for the right time for the right message. Everything was perfect. So again, for you to do that, I appreciate it, and I know a lot of other Kieran Reed people, supporters, appreciate that too. So we absolutely love your channel. We love what you put out. Please don't stop. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, I thank you so much for coming on today.
All right, thank you so much for having me, and I'll have to set you up with my brother.
Please do.
Yeah, I think you'll have a good time with him.
and tell your mom and dad they both did a good job raising you. We're proud. We're proud of what they did.
Tell them that Tom said that.
Yep. They won't know who I am, but
all right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, my friend. Talk soon.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow, guys. What an amazing show. Woo. You guys, thank you all for being here. Thumbs up if you'd like to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. We're very close to 6,000 subs. And you only need 50. So anyone can just hit that sub button. I'd really like it. It's free. Um, please subscribe to Brother Counsel's channel. Let me put him back up for you guys. Definitely worth the subscription. Definitely worth it. When he comes out with this stuff, these are all his videos. Brother Counsel, BC. And he does really, really, really in-depth work. So please give him a like and a sub for that. What else? What else? What else? Yeah, we're gonna talk to his maybe we'll talk to his brother. I'm open to talking to people. I like that, right? It's all good. You guys are great. I love you all. So back to business at hand. We are having hold on, technical difficulties. Give me a second. Right here. All right. We're close, guys. We're close. We bumped it up. Please, please, please make a donation to Aiden Kearney, to his defense fund. If you donate $10 to Aiden, take a screenshot and send it to my email, cputom@gmail.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing for some tickets and some stuff. So it's gonna be a whole package. Whereas we're gonna have two wonderful freaking dynamite awesome seats. Awesome freaking seats. You're gonna have some sweatshirts, say Bruins. Maybe a little money. Maybe a trip from Braintree Park and Ride to the Garden and back. So it don't gonna cost you nothing. It's kind of gonna be an experience. Kind of be a good night. I'm gonna try and make it a good night. So with that said, please donate to Aiden. These 2 tickets. Trying to raise some money for Aiden this week. Next week we go back to Karen. This week it's Aiden. Please go and donate $10 or whatever you can afford to his legal defense fund. He's got a lot of bills because of the Norfolk County District Attorney, and they took away his freedom. That to me is huge. Oh, thank you. You're a really great host. I really enjoy your channel. Rosie, thank you very much. I enjoy you people being here. I love it. I love you guys. Oh, that would be cool. I love the dog. Looks like my min pin. I had a min pin. Looks like that. Thank you, Nick Nack. Thank you. Amazing show because of my mods. Amazing show. That's why. You guys. Again, I do this for you guys because you guys are awesome. How do you get my email? It's easy. cputom@gmail.com. cputom@gmail.com. Send me a screenshot of your donation. There's Miss Rhonda, and I will put you in for the wheel. And it's gonna be a ding, nice little night. Pure decorating, my problem. Baker. Well, you got to be the bun, bud. You're part of this too, man. You ain't getting out of it that easy. No, it's nice to have. It's really nice to like Baker's here, right? And the Glare comes in, and Melanie stops by once in a while. It's pretty cool that Brian comes in to have other creators come in your channel. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now here's the thing, right? And here's one of the issues I have when I go into other people's channels. I hate it. I hate talking in chat because when I go in there, everyone says hi to me, and I feel like I'm taken away from the person doing the show, and I don't want to do that. So 99% of the times I don't even say hi in chat because I don't want, like Scott McGinnis. Scott McGinnis comes in, everybody says, "Hi, Scott, what's going on?" And that's cool. So that's just me. But either way, you guys are freaking wonderful. Scott McGinnis, diehard supporter, always there for Karen. I mean, if Karen made a phone call and says, "Scott, I need you here at this time," she could just hang up and he would be there. He's just like that. So, Scott, thanks for being you. Don't quit. And again, donate to Karen next week or this week if you want. I'm not saying don't donate to her. But this week we're trying to raise some money for Aiden. So if you want to put $10 into his little thing, get your chance to win tickets. All right, everybody. You all have an absolutely super wonderful day. And again, subscribe because you never know. Like yesterday, we went live real quick. I don't know if you caught yesterday's show, but you should probably watch it. Yeah. And the people that were subscribed got notification that we went live. So if you didn't get notification, it's on the channel. So everybody have an absolutely super wonderful day. I love you all, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.